we've looked at a variety of ways to display air plants or tillandsia, I want to look now at some basic care. First thing we want to think about when we're considering how to display our plants is what type of environment they need. Now, as far as temperature goes, the ambient room temperature is adequate for most air plants. It's quite an ideal condition. Now, if we're using them outside, we want to be careful because once the temperatures get above 90 or 95, the plants tend to stress a bit. They'll become dehydrated. So at that point, we want to bring them back indoors. Now, as far as light goes, we want to put them in a place that receives bright but indirect light. You don't want the hot sun glaring on them. Getting a few hours of morning light, direct sun, wouldn't be too bad. One thing you want to do is just keep a watch on your plants, and the more direct sunlight they get, the quicker they'll dry out, so you might need to water them a little bit more often. So I want to talk then about watering. Air plants are pretty easy to take care of. We don't water them like most plants because they don't have roots. They actually take up the water through these scales that cover their leaves. These are called trichomes, and they actually need water to sit on them in order for the plant to take up water. As the water sits there, the trichomes close up and trap that water. So to water our plants, we're going to soak them in a bath of water. We want to submerge them, and we're going to soak them for about 20 to 30 minutes. And now if you've mounted some, remember that you want to mount it on something that can also be wet. So I'm just going to go ahead and turn that driftwood over and soak all my air plants. I might need a couple more larger bowls for some of these larger species. And we're going to leave those for 20 to 30 minutes. Now we want to water our air plants at a minimum of once a week. That's going to give them enough water to survive and grow. But they'll really thrive if you water them 2 to 3 times a week. Give them a bit of a soak. You can also soak them once a week and then spray them with a bottle, a mister, in between soakings 2 or 3 times a week to keep them adequately moist. Now after they've been in the water bath for a half an hour, we want to shake out the excess water and then just lay the plants out on a towel to dry. We want to put them in a place where the air circulation is good because we want these plants to dry out within 4 hours. We don't want the plants to remain wet because then they could have some rotting involved. And even my plant here that's mounted on some driftwood, I'll just lay that one out, ideally upside down or tilted if we can. Now this is the general method for watering most of our air plants, but there are some species that have a little bit different care requirements. So this is our Xerographica, and this is a very robust plant, has thick leaves, and it tends to dry out a little bit more slowly. So we only need to soak it about once every 10 days. And when we do that, we want to put it upside down in the water, give it our normal bath of 20 to 30 minutes, and then when we're done, we want to shake out the extra water, and we want to lay it upside down to dry. If you look at this, there's some very deep cups that would hold water if I set it upright. So turning it upside down will allow the water to drain out of that plant. Another group of plants that needs a different type of watering are plants that are in flower. I have a couple examples. None of them are fully open, but they're starting to flower. When these soak in water, the flower stems actually become very soft and they can break off. So we don't want to soak them in a bath. Instead, we're going to run them under a stream of water for about a minute or two until the plant is thoroughly saturated. And then we'll shake them off and lay them out on our towel to dry. Another group that we're going to water this way under a stream of water are plants that have a bulbous base like this. These leaves have large pockets of air, and if we soaked them, the water would get in there and it's closed up tight. It would be very hard to dry. And so by just holding them upside down under a running stream of water, they'll get all the water they need. We can then shake them out and lay them on our towel to dry. Now some plants might occasionally need a little bit of grooming, and if they have, every plant leaves die occasionally, we could just trim those off with a little pruner. Sometimes, like I have here, the tip of it is a little bit dead. Hopefully you can see that. You could take your pruner and just snip that off. They don't require much maintenance. Just keep them looking their best. We also want to think about Fertilizer. Now in general, air plants will do just fine without any additional fertilizer. If you want to make your plants grow more quickly or flower more quickly, you can use a fertilizer. You want to use one that's labeled for bromeliads. You can find that in most garden centers. Or you use your standard houseplant fertilizer, but at a rate of 1/4 the normal strength. So dilute that back with water because they don't really need too much. And you would put that into their soaking water and soak them with the fertilizer. About the time that they flower, many of the tillandsia will start to produce offshoots, or what we call pups, around the base of the plant. Now, none of mine happen to have pups, but they're just going to look like little miniature reproductions of the parent plant. And you can either leave those on and allow the plants to kind of clump up into a group, or once they're about 1/3 the size of the parent plant, you could break them off and start a new plant. Now, it might sound like the air plants need a bit of special care, but they're actually quite forgiving. If you go on vacation, you can not worry about them. When you come back, just give them a soak and they'll recover well. They're really quite simple and a lot of fun to use throughout the house.